The Trump administration has reportedly sent a draft resolution to the UN Security Council for the establishment of what could be called the International Stabilization Force, or ISF. The United Kingdom expects to be part of this effort.
Some of the provisions of the 20-point plan do include ISF, and we support that being underpinned by a Security Council mandate, including a Security Council resolution. There are, as you say, talks in New York, including with the UK mission, and they will continue.
The resolution calls for the establishment of the ISF for at least 2 years. A group called the Border Peace, headed by President Trump, will oversee the ISF. The proposed force would be required to demilitarize the Gaza Strip, including the destruction and prevention of rebuilding of military, terror, and offensive infrastructure, as well as the permanent decommissioning of weapons from non-state armed groups. That means Hamas, and Israel contends that disarming Hamas is at the core of the Trump peace plan. The ISF will be required to work in close cooperation with Egypt and Israel, but some Arab countries reportedly object to the force being a, quote, peace-enforcing force rather than a peacekeeping force, to avoid direct confrontation with Hamas. Since the ceasefire, Hamas has refused to disarm. Trump has warned if Hamas does not disarm, then Hamas will be disarmed quickly, perhaps violently, and could be eliminated. Meanwhile, the remains of Israeli-American Staff Sgt. Itay Chen arrived in Israel Tuesday night. Hamas captured Chen on October 7, 2023, and his death was confirmed in March of 2024. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on X posted, "The remains of Itay Chen, a young American taken hostage by Hamas at just 19 years old, have finally returned home. We honor his life, mourn his loss, and stand with his family." Chen is the final U.S. hostage held by Hamas, and the release of Chen leaves 7 hostages still in Hamas captivity.
Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem to continue our conversation. Let's talk about this international security force. What is the reaction of the Israeli government to this plan, and do they believe Israel will be safe and secure with this force in place?
Well, they certainly hope that Israel will be safe and secure with this force in place. I would add that, probably Israel doesn't want to be overseeing maybe 2 million Gazans that still remain after the war. But there is concern. Does Israel want to have any enemy nations on its doorstep? For example, has said no to Turkey. Other questions will be, how long will this mandate last? It says 2 years, but it could last even longer. What impact will it have long-term in Gaza? And could Israel lose some of its autonomy with having many a multi-nation force inside Gaza and right on their doorstep?
In your report, some Arab countries reportedly object to the force being a peace enforcing rather than a peacekeeping force. What's the difference?
Well, peacekeeping, Ephraim, would be maintaining peace that's already been achieved, presumably after Hamas would be disarmed, and that there would be relative peace within Gaza. Peace enforcing takes a whole different tact. It's much more offensive. They would have an active role in disarming Hamas, and many nations would rather not put their own soldiers in harm's way in direct confrontation with Hamas and go through what the IDF has gone through for more than 2 years by fighting an urban warfare, and not only an urban warfare, but a subterranean warfare by trying to defeat Hamas. So many of the nations would rather have a peacekeeping role than a peace-enforcing role.
Do you know what countries will be involved in this force?
Well, we already know that the U.S. is an observer, and they have a monitor. They have a center down here in the south of Israel. Prime Minister Netanyahu has made it clear that he will decide, that Israel will decide what foreign forces can be part of this proposed ISF mission in Gaza. And he has emphasized in the past that Israel's security and the sovereignty will remain non-negotiable. And that only nations that trusted by Israel will be allowed to participate in this post-war Gaza. 3 countries have been outside of the Middle East have been mentioned as possible candidates. That would be Indonesia, Azerbaijan, and Pakistan. And in the past, other nations have been talked about, that the UAE, Saudi Arabia forces have been mentioned that they would take an active role in a post-war Gaza.
What role will Hamas have in Gaza?
Well, that's a big question, Ephraim, right now. The Times of Israel is reporting that a senior Hamas official, he says the agreement has been reached with the Palestinian Authority on the formation of a committee to manage Gaza. Now, this runs contrary to what Trump's plan says, that Hamas would be disarmed. And it goes against the three goals of Israel from the very beginning of the war after October 7th. That would be to defeat Hamas, make sure that it doesn't have any influence in a post-war Gaza, and return all the hostages. Well, right now, doesn't take over any of post-war Gaza is one of the main goals of Hamas. Right now, the ceasefire stopped Israel short of defeating Hamas, and but yet some, like Senator Lindsey Graham, have seen a role of the Palestinian Authority in Gaza after they have reforms. Now, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in his speech to the UN back in September, said he didn't think there was any aspect that the Palestinian Authority could change its spots. As the Bible says, how can a leopard change its spots? So we'll see if the Palestinian Authority will take any role in a post-war Gaza. And also, many people, biblical students, look at chapter 3 in Joel about dividing God's land, and that really has a biblical reference of you don't want to divide God's land because there are consequences as God judges the nations.
Here in the United States, Election Day was Tuesday, and voters in New York City elected Zohran Mamdani as the next mayor. Some have called him anti-Israel and an anti-Israel activist. What's the reaction there to this victory?
Well, many are very concerned about the Jews in New York City. Will they leave the city? Some believe they may go to Florida, try to go to Texas, or would they come here to Israel, make Aliyah? Many believe the election of Mamdani is going to accelerate the immigration of Jews to Israel because of his anti-Israel statements in the past. So a huge, dramatic development there in New York City that's going to have an impact here in Israel and the Jews in the U.S. and around the world.
All right, our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, as always, thank you for your insights. Looking forward to hearing from you in the days ahead.